7:30, I'll call this meeting of the Board of Finance, Town of Granby to order. Confirm a quorum, 4 in attendance. Wilkie is away, traveling. And Jenny will be on. Yeah,
she's on.
Okay.
Yeah.
First item, approval of minutes from November 27th, last meeting.
Make a motion to be accepted.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's no issue with them. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions, none, motion carries. Statements of accounts, we'll take the municipal first.
So the 6-month tax collections is very consistent compared to the previous year at 65%. In the month of December, we got the property tax relief grant for the veteran and the disability from the OPM. They are both short of, from the budget amount, combined of short of $900. And the stiff rate is still around 5.4%, which is good for the interest rate. We earn about $71,000 from the stiff in the month of December. There's no additional revenue from the 280 Seminbrook development. And just want to mention that the rent will be under budget for the rent line because Freshie didn't renew the lease. We collected $10,800 in the fiscal year FY24. Highlights for the expenditure: the December month-end expenditure is consistent with the last fiscal year at 58% compared to 61% last year. And the overtime expenditure for the public work year-to-date as of December 31st was almost $14,000. And I will take any questions.
Kimmy, I meant to inquire and didn't. The auto supplement, do you know how much was billed?
Oh, I don't know. I can check that for you.
Please.
Kimmy, I see that the building permits are way above budget, which is good in terms of revenues. And that was through just the end of December.
End of December.
Do we, knowing the potential projects that are going around town, do we have a forecast as to where we'll finish there? Do we have a forecast of how over we think we're going to be for the year?
I can't give you an update. I will have to talk to Abby about that.
Thank you. Stiff rate's still good, so excess revenues are good. And then the state revenue sharing, when do we expect that?
State revenue sharing, we already received it.
Oh, we already received it.
We already received
I'm
it.
sorry.
We budget zero for that.
I'm sorry. Got it. Thank you.
Kimmy, for the Freshies building, for former Freshies building, do we have a projection of how much that'll, short, like their rent?
It will be 10,800 because we collect 6 months.
Oh, okay, so it'll just be.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mr. First Selectman, do we have any leads on filling that space yet? Have there been any inquiries?
Let me know if you can handle it. Yeah, thank you. No, not yet, but we're working on it. So we expect to have on our agenda next Monday authorization to have Abby conduct an RFP to hire a commercial broker to help us market the property. So, and I would also, I think, point out, although I had talked to Kenny about this, so even though the Freshies revenues will be down, we will in this, well, maybe they're not over budget. Anyway, farm lease revenues will be up, but probably not over budget because we probably put the right number in the budget. Was that right?
It will be more, but it's not the same line.
Yeah, so,
Right.
so overall revenues will probably equal out. We'll do more, better in farm leases. Those are set and we're collecting them, and less on Freshies to, up to the point where we do something with it. So that process is going to take some time, so.
Thanks. Kimmy, sorry guys, I just have one. When it comes to the overtime expenses for Public Works, they've been doing a great job, certainly keeping the roads clear. We've been getting a lot of nasty weather. Is that in line with what we budgeted?
Well, at the end of December, it's actually favorable.
It's favorable.
Yes, but then we have storm in January, so I will have to relook at that number.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? If not, we'll move on to education. You know,
Ready?
we have the BOE chair in Zoom as well.
Okay. Is that a go for the statement of accounts? Okay. All right. We usually start on page 3 at the bottom in the right-hand corner. You'll see we're $227,000 over budget, which is better than last month by about $39,000. Special education is a little worse. Regular education is better. If you were to stroll through the line items, you'll see, our electricity is a little bit worse. Our substitutes are a little bit worse. Those are our 2 major line items. And we've started to forecast savings in several of the accounts in order to keep the ship afloat in the regular education. But you kind of see we're hanging on by our teeth here, skin of our teeth. The regular education budget is only about $18,000, projected to be $18,000 better. And we're going to see a lot of movement in that number going forward as we monitor the electricity and the substitutes. And we are looking to other line items to realize some savings. I don't want to say cutting back on anything yet because we haven't fully expended those budgets yet. So we're just asking them, and there's typically a balance in some of these accounts that we've taken forecasted some savings in. So I wouldn't say that we're freezing anything yet. We're just realizing what we think the savings will be a little bit earlier than we typically do. The PO cutoff will be, and we'll talk to the schools in February about the PO cutoffs, and we'll have a better understanding of spending in March. So the goal is to keep the regular education line afloat and cover any special education loss that we can, but I guess my main focus right now is to keep the regular education line from going negative. This year, this time, last year, if you flip to page 1, to the bottom of page 1, and you see the projection for the full year forecast of being over budget $25,000. Last year at this time, we were about $326,000 favorable in this line item. And that's directly correlates to the over 30 certified positions that we transitioned so far this year. It's pretty unprecedented to transition that many certified positions, and it's only January. This is as of December, but even speaking for January, knowing what's going on. So that is the general fund expenditures. Would you want to ask questions before I go to revenues?
Question, the tech support number here, the
Yes.
negative. What drives that?
Okay. So if you it's a little bit difficult to see it the way these line items are rolled up, but there was a position that was vacated in at the end of fiscal year 23, was a consulting position, right? So that was in the purchase services line. And we filled it with an employee. So it was a direct correlation. It just moved from the purchase service line, savings in the purchase services line, to an over budget condition in the tech line. It's hard to see now because purchase services at this point in the year also contains the substitutes and some other contracted services that are directly related to special ed that are over budget. But way at the beginning of the year, you could just see over budget in salaries, under budget in purchase services, the exact same number.
And is there any reason we don't drop those line items when we make those conversions?
Well, the budget was passed, and we typically report on what was voted and approved by the Board of Ed and was approved by the voters. We keep that in the queue all year long. At the end of the year, we do our transfers. Do you do yours at the end of the year? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I've worked in districts where they do transfers every month. So, both methods have their benefits and their drawbacks. But, yeah, so that's the direct correlation to that technology. It's been that way the entire year. I guess they didn't decide to hire that way until, I think it was July.
Can I jump in with a question, Mike?
Please do.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure I follow, so I understand the magnitude of that, Anna. So purchase services, instructional purchase services, the deficit there, the 41,000 deficit is actually artificially lowered by the fact that we moved a position out of there.
You are correct.
So
Yeah.
that when you just, in other words, purchase services has really hit us hard this year.
Purchase service, yes. Yes. And that is,
Well, harder than the negative 41, if you add that person back in, would be, negative 110 or something.
yes. And that's directly correlated to two things. One is substitute services, and the second thing are purchase services in special education, since we are having trouble hiring speech and language professionals and also behavioral people, BCBAs, to fill vacant positions. And because they're required, those services are required by IEPs, the individual education plans, they have to be filled. So we are now contracting out.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the board?
Request? Anna,
Yes.
could we take a look at the past, really enjoy the way you break out at the bottom of page 3, and I know we always go first there, the way we look at special ed and general ed, and then where the projection of end of year is going to sit. Would you run the last 10 years for me at fiscal year end? Where we have been in both and how that measured up to budget? I'd like to see not just what the 10, specifically, not just to see where we were off or where we weren't, but most importantly, I kind of want to see what percentage of the overall budget both ended up being and how that's progressed over the years.
So you want
Just as a part of the other project that we're looking at.
Sure, delineated between regular ed and special ed, so
Please.
results with, okay, yep.
Yeah, it was something that came up this week it was a plain thought while I was traveling for work. Thank you.
Sure. So should I move on to revenue or?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Page 4 is just the breakdown of the special education expenses. But page 5 is our revenue. So we, since this was run, we received some additional dollars, information. Right now, we're showing the full year forecast to be about $130,000 under budget. That special education cost reimbursement keeps moving based on services. Special education tuition, there was some additional billings that went out there, so we're a little better. What you don't see here is our per pupil expense went up about $1,000, so that's about 36 students. So we'll be about $36,000 better in the regular tuition from other towns. However, we just received, since this was printed, we just received an estimate of our special education revenues, and that looks to be like it's almost $110,000 less than what we see here, the excess cost, because they lowered the percentage. For Granby, it's down to 70.46%. That's the lowest it's been since I've been here. And they wrote a letter. Did I forward? I think I forwarded the letter. And the letter explained that they increased the pool by a certain dollar amount. The state did, but it really wasn't based on any reality. So because the pool is not large enough, and of course all the claims that are coming in, each person gets less of the pool because the pool won't cover 100%. Pool won't even cover the regular 72%. The pool won't cover the 88% they promised us last year. So now they're saying the pool will cover approximately 70.46% for Granby. So you will see next month, you will see the excess cost reimbursement go down. We'll have a better number because we do file our mid-year report with them and they give us a little bit more of a firm number. So that's not great news. Plus you'll see, of course, the stop loss is higher now because the per pupil expense is higher. So you'll see a little bit of an adjustment there as well.
what do you
Hey,
expect?
Anna,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just curious, is the 70.46%, is that, setting aside maybe the distressed schools, is that everybody's bench
No.
percent, or are they differentiating somehow by town?
They are differentiating by town. There are 5 different groupings. And we're in one of the largest groups, but we're certainly not in one of the underserved towns or the alliance districts that
Yeah.
get a higher percentage of a bigger number.
Okay. I'd be interested in seeing that or seeing a link to it. I'd just like to see where the other,
Yep.
but would you assume that most of our peers are also at 70.46, the Simsburys and stuff, or are there? Well, I'll look at the detail. if you
Yeah,
send me the link.
Yeah, I have the
Thank
link.
you. Okay, thanks.
For next year, Anna, we talked about for excess cost, increase of 117. What does this percentage do to that number?
Right. So they're talking about increasing the pool by 117? Is that what you said? Oh, you
No.
mean our increase? Okay.
Number.
So you'll see that you would expect an increase, but we will not get one because in our revenue line, because last year we budgeted at the 88.2%. This year, for FY24, for FY25, we're going to budget at 70.46, 71% of a bigger number because our special education costs have gone up. However, we will still have a decrease in revenue because of the variance between the two percentages. So we'll have more special ed cost, more opportunity for excess cost, but a lower percentage, and therefore, budget to budget, we will see a decrease in revenue.
Is that represented in the plus ones, the 70.46, or were we counting on the 72 in the plus ones?
So in the plus one, we don't budget for revenue in the plus one, but we do give a ballpark. We knew it was not going to increase. So even if we budgeted at the 72% that we typically budget at, we were still looking at a decrease because of the difference between the 88 and the 72. Right.
Right, yeah, no, that's good. The concern I have is when we're looking at the municipal revenues, if we budgeted at 72, now we're 1.5 on those revenues shorter, at least what we know today, as opposed to what we knew when the plus ones were originally
Right.
written up. So we need to consider that
And
in the next couple of months when we're looking at
the
budgets.
special ed continues to develop. So by the time you see the budget, we'll see a totally different number.
But the differential at the moment, based on the existing plus one, if you can quantify what the change in the excess cost number is.
Yeah, I think we calculated it already, and I think it's a decrease, just plus one, at the time of the plus one, compared to our budget in FY24, it's a decrease of about $117,000.
It's a decrease in revenue, 117. Okay. Okay.
Not helpful. You're very helpful,
Oh,
obviously.
this is not
No,
pretty.
the number
It's
is not.
not pretty. Q&D is holding pretty strong. Just a note on Q&D, which you might find entertaining or not. Last year, they passed legislation that for FY25 that we could budget at 58%, no higher than 58% of the tuition that we're currently paying for magnet school, which is what, the 42% discount. And that was to help districts, but they didn't figure out how to fund the amount that they changed. So they asked us, could you just hold that? Don't budget 58% because we don't know how we're going to fund the part that we're discounting. The money has to come from somewhere. It's supposed to come from the chef settlement, but they haven't figured that out yet. So everybody's holding their breath on magnet school expenditures, what we would spend for magnet schools. So right now, our Q&D budget going forward, and this projection does not reflect any of those proposed reductions in tuition. We'll see what happens. I'm just mentioning it because it's come up in conversation, and I don't want you to think that we're not paying attention to it. We're aware. We're just watching it.
So did they say, like, don't budget it this year because it's not going to come at all, or don't expect any retro?
Oh, we wouldn't get anything for FY24, but we're budgeting for FY25.
Okay.
It impacts, our general fund. If we had a few more shekels to play with in the budget, we might, get a little relief in the general fund. But that doesn't look like, that's in the holding pattern right now. So we usually do the Q and D budget at the Board of Ed around the beginning of February, but that's pushed off till February 21st, hoping that we'll get maybe some information before that time. So that's the Q and D fund.
Anna, I'm gonna be sarcastic, I'm sorry. Of the 4 revenue accounts,
Yes.
how close are the numbers, given the information you get from the state, finally, given to what you believe they are gonna be when you do the budget?
The only one that really is kind of unpredictable is the excess cost reimbursement. Tuition from other towns, you can see we're pretty close and we'll be over. That depends on the per pupil. The special education tuition from other towns also just depends on, that's not from the state, that just depends on our enrollment and the needs of students. So we go off of the information that we have at the time. Of course, we graduate 12th graders, we don't count that kind of thing. So that's not from the state either, and that will fluctuate. The largest one is the excess cost reimbursement, and that's the one that fluctuates. It fluctuates based on the percentage that they will reimburse. It fluctuates on our per pupil expense, and it fluctuates based on student needs and how close or over the stop loss they go.
But if 2 students from a district that feeds in, their families move from that district, which means they won't be coming anymore. So the revenue is lower in the final numbers. But the cost probably isn't reflective in the loss of those 2, because you still have to work with the number that you have, whether it's 10 or 2. I mean, some of the costs you just can't go. They're
Right, so-
gone, even though you're down in numbers.
Well, what ends up happening for outplaced students, we have a report that's due on March 1st. March 1st, we give them our projection. It behooves us to overproject because you cannot add any students. You don't get excess costs if you have a student that moves into the district between March 1st and June 30th. There's no excess cost, no matter how much that student costs. So that's how the state tries to get a handle on the pool, and if somebody leaves, it just goes, I don't know if it goes back into the pool, they might switch districts. I have no idea how the state works those. But then in June, we're audited, and then the state will pull that apart, and any adjustments will come through to excess to the ECS. In the 3rd quarter, I forget which
Should be the last one.
the last one?
Yeah.
Okay. So where's it? We get 3 payments.
We get 3 payments.
3 payments, so the last
April.
payment.
Thank you.
It's a racket. So, very, very difficult to project with so many moving parts. I think all the districts out there's a lot of conversation about how broken this is.
Well, we do pretty well, given the marbles that are involved in it.
Right.
Anything else from the board for the BOE?
Just a comment to, having spent some years on the finance committee of the Board of Ed right around now, I just want to appreciate that people are looking hard at how we can maintain the position on general ed, if not improve it, without compromising our plans and our delivery of services. And I know it's always been a balancing act, and often it starts in April. This year it's starting in January. So I just wanted to acknowledge that hard work that I know you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Next item is We have the +1 budgets as submitted to the, presented at the 3 board. As well as the worksheet that I had at that time. The worksheet taken, we used last year's budget worksheet at the end of March as the starting point for this one. Plugged in the +1s. The only other change I think I made was that in fiscal 25-26, I changed the grand list growth number from 1.50% to 1.75. Still think we'll probably, hopefully see a slightly better number. We'll have it shortly because it has to get filed with OPM by the 31st of this month. We don't have it yet. Next Wednesday, first Wednesday in February, the governor is expected to address, I guess, opens the short session. And in the past would often have his revisions to the budget, which would include revenues to the towns. We'll see if that happens. If that piece happens next week when the session opens, and if it does, it'll come through that day through CCM as well as CABE. They get the information out pretty quickly. And that's just the statutory, the formula grants. Would not include, I don't think, this municipal revenue sharing thing, because that was not, that's basically discretionary on the administration's part. And so far, I haven't got a sense. I don't think anyone does at the Capitol that if that will continue or not this year, given that the state itself is seeing its fortunes decline. Its surplus, I think, shrank from $500 million projected 6 months ago to about not even half of that as of December. So definitely heading the wrong way.
Well, we know they didn't spend it on what they promised they were going to give the towns.
Nope. No, they made such a big deal of that
They
a
did.
year ago.
And they got headlines from it.
No.
Non-election season, it goes down. Surplus only goes up.
So we can get into,
Can I ask a question on your,
yeah, go ahead.
just a question on your spreadsheet related to that. So for the upcoming year under intergovernmental, what did you factor into to what you plug in there? I know we hope to have much better numbers before we have to set the guideline, but I'm just curious what this was based on right now.
It should be based on what was shown last year, the second year of the 2-year budget,
Okay,
which shows a steady, minor but slow decline in ECS
50.
of 50,000. And
okay,
I think the formula says basically that's what it's going to be going forward.
Yep.
Year after year after year, drop of 50.
okay. So the difference between what we budgeted this year and what you plugged in here is that 50,000, is that expected $50,000, and also not putting in the municipal cost sharing because we don't know, or revenue sharing, right?
the revenue sharing does not appear anyplace on the sheet.
Right, that's what I meant. So that's why the number that's in the sheet now is, it's about as much different than what was budgeted in the current year than that number plus the 50,000 that you guys, that makes sense to me. I was just confirming how you'd estimated it.
Okay. At the three board, my perspective was simply looking at the sheet, and it created a 5.0% mill rate change. To me, that's too steep. I'd like to at least get it into the threes, if not slightly under 3. We still have some big pieces that may help, but the grand list we'll have shortly. That's the reason we talk about a preliminary guideline at this point versus the actual to be set. In this case, Tuesday, February 13th, we'll meet at 6 o'clock. We'll update the sheet, we'll take public comment, and set the guidelines. We'll adjourn for 7 because at 7, the selectmen have a meeting at the Pond House. Mark?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For discussion of the proposal for the solar project at Morovia's property, or whoever the folks are who they sold it to, which we're invited to. So, as an example, 1% reduction in operating across the board is $492,000. That would reduce that 5.0 to 3.83%. I'm interested in hearing from the board where you think we should end up and how we would look to get there. I'm not so sure how specific we have to be tonight, because we really need to get the governor's budget, hopefully, and the grand list number. I suppose we can get an update on the health plan, which could be useful, but that can hurt as well. How have claims been running?
A little bit better, but not much better. We did look at it one more time after the meetings. The percentage pretty much the same.
Okay. All right.
We will look at it again.
Yep, we haven't had another.
Yeah, if by the end of March we can get another read on it, because then we'll know if we can use.
I'm just hopeful we don't lose more ground.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Well, that's part of the problem. We thought we were building some margin into this and ended up spending it all in the last year or so. It's just a yo-yo up and down. So, perspective, input from the board. Kevin?
Yeah, I guess I'm in agreement, I guess, kind of that along that mindset of kind of the 1% reduction, like that should be our kind of interim target as we're looking for the other pieces to fill in. Obviously, get the healthcare numbers in, and that changes direction, right? Where maybe there's more opportunity for us. I mean, it's still a little bit of a wait and see, but certainly would love to see kind of going in and is there anything that we don't have to do, right? Or anything from the education side where I think even on the small capital, right? There's some kind of play there where kind of maybe looking at a couple of years. So kind of really like how that's coming along and kind of the mindset on there. So, just kind of would be interested to continue to see that play out and hear a little bit more. But yeah, I guess anything we could do to reduce or see an actual reduction, before the final numbers come in would be appreciated.
James?
The numbers get tougher and tougher every year, and certainly we don't want to reduce services to the town. I think anytime, even in a family, when you have family finances that are, that are hurting in a specific year, you have to look at the need to haves and the nice to haves. And sometimes you have to rule out the nice to haves or just postpone the year in which you implement what we're looking to do. So I appreciate, again, also on the small cap side, the creative ways that everybody's talking about maybe doing something there. Personally, I think when our neighbors who had a hard time with an almost 1% or 1% mill increase this past year after reval, even if it's 4, right? Even if it's 3.8, it's almost 4x that. The sticker shock, I think a bunch of our neighbors will have a little bit of a hard time with. I'd personally like to see this somewhere in the low 3s with a lot of elbow grease and maybe a pry bar. So that's where I'd like to see it.
Bill?
Well, reductions are always difficult, and where I sit and have sat is, what number do I think the town people are going to approve? Because if we send out a number that gets turned down, then we fight from what number does that have to be, or is there a number in between what we think they wanted us at and what we would like to be at? So it gets to be a real struggle, and a lot of animosity gets developed. And then you fight an uphill battle trying to get a budget approved. Like, why didn't you do that in the first place? Cut it like this instead of trying to get out a realistic budget that we feel confident the town will approve.
Jenny?
Well, not surprisingly, I don't think we're gonna end up at 5, and we're not gonna end up, and I don't think we're gonna end up at 3. But I think we certainly, what our taxpayers can bear and what they will show up the goals and support has to get factored in. But I guess I would get a little bit below our job of assessing and our whole board's job of figuring out what they think is absolutely in the town's best interest. What I'm struggling with is, and I think both boards will find some more ways to do some creative things, but I think it's going to be nibbling at the edges. The only thing new in here are a couple of positions in the town that frankly I believe cost us money that we haven't had. I think it's long overdue that we properly staff the town. So, I'm ready to see how the revenues come out. I'm ready to hear the budget hearings, and I'm ready to go talk with the taxpayers, including those who typically don't show to pass the budget, to get past what is going to be in their best interest. I don't have a number to put on that yet, and I don't think any of us really do.
So from what you just said now, also at the 3 board, it sounds like your sense is we're going to see more resources, more money on the table to offset these increases in expenditure, whatever they are. Are you expecting?
I don't know. What maybe I was more optimistic before you gave me the answer you did earlier tonight. I think the biggest thing we don't know, the stuff that, I do wish the operating boards, not during budget time, but during other times of the year, would try to look at some of the big numbers and make some significant change, like really tackling the electric bill once and for all. But that's a multi-year process, and it doesn't, we don't do it during the budget season. We don't get the stuff, you know. Anyway, I think our biggest place for movement is revenue, and you're right, Mike, maybe it won't be positive, but I'd like to see, hopefully we'll see some of those numbers before the next meeting.
Well, I think a
But
lot of,
otherwise, I think we have to spend, I do think we have to spend some time asking taxpayers to please come to the meetings and tell us what services they don't want. Because every year they say cut it, but they won't tell us what services they don't want, which is why I think there's an awful lot of people who do want the services and don't realize that they have to come out and support us. And I do think, I know we all work at it, I think maybe we're gonna have to double that down this year. Maybe this is the year that we really have to find the people in the community that understand the value of the work we do and the hard work we put into it. And I'm talking about all you guys, everybody. And I've always said, by the time we put a budget forward, it's going forward to the people having unanimously from everybody. There's nothing political about it. We're trying to do what's in the town's best interest. And we should have the courage of our convictions and try to explain that to our friends and colleagues out there too. So.
okay. Well, my hope is it'd be great if we can end up where we're all looking at something that's under 3. I'm just not, at this juncture, sure how we get there. I think what you said about the positions in the municipal budget, between John Ward being sick and Scott having to fill in back then, and basically pretty much 4 years have been lost there, and some of these issues would have been dealt with one way or the other. And in the time that Mark has filled in as town manager, he's just, I've heard what he's got to say, and I think we need to address some of this stuff with the current year's budget. Even what he said with the retainer, or maintainer, we did have that position filled as recently as, I think, 2011 or thereabouts. And when the budget was defeated, the slot was open, so we just never filled it, and we haven't filled it since. But, we keep hearing, in terms of square footage, we've added, 40, 50% more square footage in terms of building space in 25 years, yet we pretty much have the same public works staff that we had back then. And they're getting stretched, and we're going to have to deal with it at some point, whether it be this year with fully funding, partially funding, or deferring and bringing it up again next year. On the BOE side, it's a big bump we're looking at. We've got this whole year-to-year growth in special ed that's just putting enormous pressure on the taxpayers, what it's doing. School system. Part of the issue, and this is where Bill was coming from, I think, is simply affordability of taxes. And as we build a budget and take it forward, we've got to be cognizant of it. The article I put in the Drummer, talks about inflation, just like at home, we deal with it and have to make choices, and it's the same thing with town government. So, not so sure where we're going to end up, but if the numbers get us down to 3 or below 3, all the better. But I certainly don't want to see us in the 4s. So if it's reduction in the request from both sides in the +1, so be it. Minimum, I think we're looking at a 1% reduction in the +1s in operating. May have to go further, but in a couple of weeks, once we get the missing pieces, if we get something from the state, we'll certainly have the grand list piece, and that could help. I don't think it's going to hurt us any. I think we'll pick a little bit up, but that would make some decisions. And the conversation it'll be a little bit more animated, I suspect, when we get there. Anything else to come before the board from the members? If not, date of the next meeting is this meeting on the 13th, 6 o'clock. What did we say for room? Did we say it's in the police station because something else is here, or are we here?
I'll let you know, but I think so, yeah.
Okay. It'll be posted anyways.
Yeah.
6 o'clock, but
6 o'clock.
6, and we're done by 7.
You gotta be done by 6:45, give yourself 15 minutes to get to the park.
Okay. Motion to
Should
adjourn.
we do, is that enough time, Mike? Should we gather 15 minutes earlier?
We can start earlier if you guys want.
Tuesday at 6?
I mean, I just, it seems like an important meeting, I just don't, maybe it'll take 5 minutes, but
50 minutes should be all right. 5 minutes to Sanford Park, right?
It depends if there's public comment. Well, we can start at 5:45. That's fine. Okay.
And you said
Thank you.
police station?
I'll just let
Betsy
you
will
know.
confirm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think there was a complication with
I
here.
think so. P&Z maybe. Oh, look, I don't remember.
Well, P&Z will exit and go there too.
Yeah. I'll email you.
Thanks, Betsy.
That's the conflict. I think they also have to meet because they have some things that they have to handle with that, so I
Okay.
think that's the conflict.
So we're in the police station, 5:45. Okay. All right, and at that point, we will have more info, and we can have more direction for the boards. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Seconded.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Abstentions? None? Motion carries. Good night.
thank you, take care.
Thank you all.